Are you going to go over the unofficial jobs data or wait till the official release? It's horrible. The Challenger Gray and Christmas white collar jobs data is terrible. It's like 2009 level. Layoffs in January were the highest start to a year. This is this year. Most January layoffs since 2009. Love that. 108,435 layoffs. But I'm sure that every single one of these layoffs from companies like Amazon, 16,000 jobs, are all going to much better companies. You know what I'm saying? We're losing these lame jobs at white collar Amazon jobs, but I'm sure we're getting much better white collar jobs. It's not everybody just going to Uber and no, we're getting some real good shit. That top of the top. Yeah, it's terrible. Oh, there was one other piece of data today. This came out today. So I just want to, if you've watched the content for a while, right? You probably have a general idea. Like if you watch the Federal Reserve React, a general idea on the things I'm pointing to in the economy, right? The things I'm skeptical about, whatever. Two pieces of data comes out. Number one is that layoffs among white collar jobs, horrible. Really, really high. Highest since 2009. Second thing is credit cards. This came out today. U.S. consumer credit rose in December by the most in a year. So this is new data after I'm talking about it, and it's all going on the same direction. But people are acting like so surprised, like the consumer is so strong. How the fuck are they strong, bro? They're borrowing like crazy. Loans for vehicle purchase, loans for school tuition, loans for credit card, loans for all this stuff is peaking. And then you do consumer surveys of people and you ask them, how are you feeling about the economy? And they universally, even Republicans, they say, yeah, it fucking sucks. And then people add all that up and they go, question mark, I don't know what's behind this vibe session. I don't understand. Like the GDP number is so good. We're in a growth era. And it's like, how are you missing the gap at this point? Like a year ago, maybe I could see you missing it. Now? Come on, bro. The funniest is when they do the surveys and people's opinions on the economy change immediately to president gets elected. I mean, this happened. This is true. Right before the election, Biden voters, they were negative on the economy, but not nearly as negative as Trump voters. And then after Trump, it flipped. But the trend is that both of them were getting more negative. And now that we're a year into Trump, Republican, I mean, not all of them, but Republicans are negative too. Everyone's negative, bro. I think I saw, dude, I'd love to have this chart. It's in my brainstem. Let me see if I can pull it out through careful Googling. Just draw it in paint. The problem with drawing it in paint is it's not nearly as impactful even if I'm accurate as showing it, because then people assume that I'm wrong on the numbers, but I'm not. Here, I'll draw it on paint and then someone will find it and it'll prove what I'm saying. It's consumer sentiment after the first year of their term for the last 10 administrations. So I don't know. It'll have right here, it's like lowest one of this era is Carter. And then it's higher. It's like Reagan. And it keeps going, it's Bush. And it goes on and on and on and on. It's like, and then Biden is like the lowest. And then there's like a line, dotted line. And then it's Trump. It's Trump. And Trump's the lowest one ever recorded since they started doing the survey. And this is across all parties and affiliations. Yes, you found it. Oh my God, this is the exact article. Yes, Matt Stoller. Okay, you fucking found it. Wow, what a G. Public satisfaction with the economy. Well, this is the wrong scene. By president. Bum, 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 bum. As you can see, bad. Election losing. So, I think the numbers bear it out that people are smoking that reef, dude. If they think people are happy right now with the economy. People thought Trump won was a good economy. Yes. That's a big part of why he won this time around, bro. People remembered Trump won and said, I want more of that pre-COVID. That's economically wise. And it's mostly because Trump won in terms of actual impacts to most people's lives, didn't do anything. He cut some taxes. He couldn't get anything done because everyone in his administration hated him. Trump 2's been way, way, way worse. And time has passed. We're now in, post-COVID, everything broke, bro. We're in way more debt. We got inflation. China's only become more muscular, which is causing more contraction and competition. Like, there's just all these things, all these problems that got bigger and more challenging. And Trump's not the man to solve them, bro. He's just not. He's the man to enrich himself. But, yeah, so, you know, that's where we're at. I feel like you over-focus on the importance of deficit spending historically, while current debt and deficit levels are dangerous, especially with the degradation of the dollar. I don't think it's fair to compare the inflation effects with the 2000 deficit, which is going to the inflation effects. Okay, you're typers, you're typersing. What I would tell you is, I would take a closer look at the deficit spending of the 2000s with inflation in asset prices. Not necessarily inflation that's trickled down to consumer goods, which is where it broke through in 2020. I think there's a lot of people that thought, oh, we did QE, we printed all this money, we had massive deficits, and we got away with it. And we didn't really get away with it. The inflation was all tied up in asset prices. It was in scarce goods, fucking real estate, stocks, all that stuff got more and more out of reach of regular Americans. And then finally, it broke through into actual like consumer goods, and then no one could fucking stomach it. But do you think there's a politically feasible route back to a balanced budget? I don't know, but I will say this. I've been kind of impressed, high key, with how Mamdani is handling the New York budget, at least early. It's only a month in. But he has said some statements that I thought no politician could ever say. He said, we have to, obviously, I mean, that's not crazy that he would say this, raise taxes on the wealthy. But then he also said we have to also cut spending and trim all the waste. He said we have to do both. If we don't do both, we can't even come close to balancing it. And so it's like, that's a rare thing to say. It's rare to have somebody, because both those things are politically unpopular. To do both at the same time requires aura. It requires aura, and you kind of do have to do both, because otherwise you're kicking the can. You're putting it on the future. I think they call that Sharia law. But anyway, I appreciate the statement from him and the ability to try to explain why it needs to be done, and to just understand that we talked about this on Lemonade Stand, but I do want to say one thing. There's a lot of people that talk about problems in America like the solution is just to throw more money at it. Sometimes we do need to throw more money at a problem. I'm not saying it isn't. But I want you to imagine it like this is a pipe, okay? And it's the leakiest fucking pipe of all time. And it's just like, all the water's coming out, okay? This is a pipe. And so we pour in, like, let's say this is the healthcare pipe in America. We pour in more money than any other country on earth, but the results we get are way less. Do you understand? So sometimes people are like, we need to spend more on healthcare. Americans need to fucking, and it's like, we could dump even more money into here, but until we fix the leaky pipe, we're still gonna lose 98% of it. And it's the same thing with like the military. We spend a ton on the military, but so much of it is siphoned off. And until you really are serious about like getting effectiveness out, about spending the dollars wisely, then you're going to end up borrowing a lot, printing a lot, whatever, to try and shove it into this pipe. That's sort of the takeaway. I also want to say that America had decades of essentially a balanced budget, very small deficits, and they accomplished some of its biggest public works projects. We built highways. We built, Eisenhower had a balanced budget. Post World War II, by the way, we had a ton of fucking debt and interest to pay, balanced budget, and then built national highway system. Like, you can still do these things. I think it's really annoying, and I hear this sometimes with people in my audience too, who think that any attempt to bring spending more in line with other countries is like austerity. Or if you're trying to balance your budget, that's austerity. It's like, bro, it's not austerity to just spend the taxes you make. You shouldn't be required to borrow and print just to get by. We've gotten through decades without that before. So I find that to be a very frustrating line of thought. New York City's not permitted to borrow? No, that's incorrect. They can't borrow for their like day-to-day budget, but New York City is actually the most indebted city in the country. They borrow quite a bit just for long-term projects or whatever. Many of our U.S. cities are underwater, not physically. They are in a lot of debt. I think it's Chicago. Yeah, Chicago in 2008 sold the right to all of the parking in the city, all the parking meters. You know, like if you go to a parking meter in a city, you have to pay, like one of these, like this, right? You park, you have to pay money, okay? Chicago took a one-time payout from a hedge fund and sold the future revenue of all of these forever, or for like 50 years or something. And then like within 3 years, this shit already made the $1 billion that they got. They got the money back in 3 years and then got 47 years of profits. It's insane. It's insane. There's a lot of stupid shit like this, bro, in a lot of cities. And I think a deep reverence and understanding of fiscal discipline is a very, very noble thing for a leader to have. And it shouldn't be something that's like, oh, that's not important. They'll figure it out. We can always borrow. No, it's not. You're literally making future people's lives worse every time, or even present people's lives worse. It's almost like this is normalized by capitalism. Bro, I don't want to get in a fucking argument with you. But here's an example you can look up if you want on your own time. I want you to look up Yugoslavia and how they had this socialist system that was funded by debt. And they had like 15 years, 20 years. How long did that system last? Yeah, it was the 70s, okay? So throughout the 70s, they had what seemed to be numbers heading in the right direction. They had good social spending on their middle class, but it wasn't paid for by raising taxes on people. It was all paid for based on debt. And then they had a debt crisis because people stopped loaning them money because their debt got too big. And then they had a massive collapse in the 80s, massive. And then they had a complete free fall in real earnings, a collapse of all social programs, 600,000 layoffs, total fragmentation. It's like any great idea you have, if it's funded on debt, it'll eventually collapse. It has to be funded on real taxing of real revenues, real growth. Dude, this even happened in, it's the same thing with fucking Hitler's economic miracle. Hitler comes into fucking power and he gets all his popularity because there's an economic surge, but it's all debt fueled. He was borrowing like fucking crazy. It was all borrowed. Even if Hitler had done nothing else, there would have been economic collapse in Germany, let alone the fucking World War II. But it was all a short-term mirage. And like our short-term mirages in America can be longer and bigger than other places because we can borrow in more deep liquid markets than anyone else. We have the fucking reserve currency. We can print, we can borrow, but we're nearing the end of that cycle, bro. It's 37 trillion of debt. The interest payments on the loan are bigger than our military. And I think, I think it's deeply important. I think it's super underrated as like a quality of a leader. And that's why I've been impressed with Mamdani. He takes it serious.